my name is Sam Stein. I'm a senior counsel with Gordon Reese Scully Mansicani in the advertising and e-commerce practice group. And welcome to this week's edition of the ADvice vlog. We have a very special edition of the vlog for you today. I know last week, Damon Wright, the chair of our practice group, talked a bit about tariffs and how e-commerce retailers may be required to notify their customers about price changes because everyone's feeling the squeeze a little bit. So there's a lot of customers out there on buying products on subscription who may be a little bit surprised when the prices go up for the things that they're buying. So today we wanted to do something a little bit different. And I wanted to have a very special guest here. Her name is Jennifer Polce. She is the vice president at Izba Consulting. They are one of the best boutique supply chain consulting firms in the country, in my opinion. She also happens to be my wife, and she's downstairs right now. And she is going to answer a few more business-focused questions today, just about supply chain and tariffs and, what e-commerce retailers can expect and maybe how to navigate what's going on right now. So Jen, welcome. Thank you for joining the vlog.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. As Sam mentioned, I run a supply chain consulting firm that helps consumer brands build resilient, efficient supply chains. So excited to talk about a hot topic today that is obviously on top of everyone's minds.
It's a very hot topic. So I think everyone's really concerned about tariffs. And I guess the big question on everybody's mind in the business is, how are tariffs affecting the prices and delivery times of products for online stores?
Yeah, so tariffs are essentially a tax, right? So they directly impact and increase landed costs. So if you think about it, if a seller was buying something for $10 and it didn't have tariffs previously, and now it has a 25% tariff on it, the cost of those goods are going to go up by $2.50. So that's a big impact. And so the brand has to decide then, do they want to absorb that? Are they passing it on to the customer? Are they trying to find other avenues to reduce costs so they can mitigate that? Or are they doing, other strategies within their business in order to potentially mitigate that risk? So we're definitely seeing, shrinking margins across the board, and it's definitely affecting a lot of sellers. A lot of people are starting to also delay their purchasing because of this, right? So they don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. So people aren't as bullish in replenishment. So we're seeing that even in the ocean freight market, the number of sailings are down, things like that. So you might notice that in different stores, et cetera, and delayed launches.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of customers don't really understand what's going on, and they may find out that something that they ordered that they thought they were going to get in a couple of days, they're not going to get for 30 days or 40 days. And it's on the retailer to keep their customers updated. And there can be legal considerations there as well, because you have to notify people if there's any material changes to their subscription or to their delivery time or things like that. It can get very complicated and they see from a consumer protection perspective. What are some of the things that these businesses need to keep in mind when they're signing contracts with suppliers, particularly ones who are overseas?
Yeah, I'd say one is building in flexibility. Having tariff language within your contracts now, setting minimum order quantities and your Incoterms, whether that's FOB, XWorks, DDP, all of those things matter a lot right now. You want to be able to have a contract that you'd be able to change should, tariffs increase, things like that. And then also the thing you can do is consider sharing the risk with your supplier as well. I've seen a lot of our clients have success in sharing some of these additional costs with their manufacturer. So the manufacturer is actually absorbing a portion of the duties or the tariff prices while they're in place. And if you think about it, it's because, this affects their business too. And so thinking of it and coming at it at an angle of a partnership and transparency for both parties is really key. I've also seen a lot of manufacturers kind of open up their books more around what are those true costs and what margin they're making so that they can help understand where there's an opportunity to reduce costs for their customers.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice. Are there any other ways to protect your business if tariffs go up again in the future?
So I've heard this and I think that it's really good advice. I think it's like treating your sourcing, right? So where your products come from, almost like portfolio management, right? You're not going to put everything all in one place. And so if you can think about like diversifying your supplier base. So maybe you're manufacturing solely in China, maybe you should be looking at like Vietnam or Cambodia, as well as alternative options if your product can be manufactured there and there's a base of that there. And so understanding which countries have the capabilities. There's also something called tariff engineering, where you can change the materials of your products in order to make them fall into different tariff classifications. These can be small changes. You can speak to, us or a lot of different people about that, understanding like where you're assembling your product as well. And then building forecasting models too that understand like how do these tariffs actually impact your costs and what do you need to change. The other thing that we always recommend to our clients is to look at other aspects of the supply chain, right? And so potentially looking at more downstream ways to save costs, whether that be adjusting your parcel providers, things like that. So all of those are, you have to kind of look at it holistically.
Yeah, would you say that that's probably the biggest mistake retailers are making when they're dealing with suppliers in high tariff countries like China? They're not looking at it holistically. Is there one thing that you're commonly seeing with your clients that they really should be changing?
I think the thing is resiliency is really important, right? And so being able to pivot and make changes and understand what your alternative options are. The clients that I have now that were already exploring manufacturing in other countries or already had manufacturing set up are the ones that are prioritized by those, because those other manufacturers, right, they don't have the same capacity from a manufacturing perspective that China does. And so they're going to fill up very quickly. So by being at the front of the line, it really, it gets you ahead of your problems, and kind of relying too much on one in all aspects of life. But I guess in here too is it's a recipe for a disaster.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll try and avoid the shameless plug until the end, but there are any tips for finding supplier options that help avoid tariff headaches?
Yes. So you can start out by mapping your current supply chain risk. So understanding, okay, where are your products manufactured, but not only are they manufactured, but like where do the components come from? Because that can change, things as well. So transparency is really key. You can also start looking at, are there countries that manufacture your product that have free trade agreements in place? You could ask the facilities as well, do they have locations in other countries? A lot of times, they're already setting up manufacturing in those alternative locations. So it's really about having those open conversations and treating your manufacturers as your partners. And then the other thing is I've seen that's really interesting is understanding, international markets, right? And so, or markets outside of the US. You don't need to only sell to the US. A lot of e-commerce sellers aren't. And so you don't actually need to bring those goods into the US. You could avoid the US altogether by using a warehousing situation that is in China or Vietnam, closer to your manufacturer. So I think that's a really interesting way to help mitigate that. Another thing that I've seen is people are starting to hold inventory in Canada and actually only importing it into the US as needed. And so that will help, distribute from a cash flow perspective, the initial burden of importation. And then also we can kind of like wait out and see what is happening, because every day something, different things change and evolve. And so you don't want to make decisions for your business now that are going to put you in a situation down the road, right? Like, let's move all the manufacturing from China. It's like, well, there could be some type of agreement that's come into place, and all this could be dated, but yeah.
Obviously, the other option is to call Izba and have a very talented supply chain consultant do all of this for you and provide the solutions that you need. So that's the shameless plug, I guess. Well, this is super informative. I know I learned a lot, and as a lawyer, I don't always have the answers to these questions. We look at things from a legal perspective, and while we look at things from a business perspective, and we can give that advice, a lot of times we're out of our depth. And so I think it's really important for e-commerce retailers to not just come to us, but also to come to consultants like you or whoever else it may be to help them navigate this I guess these treacherous waters of these tariffs. So, thank you so much for being here. We'll definitely be sure to put Izba and your contact information in the post when we put it online. And yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.